Do all villains have a sympathetic backstory? Well, hey guys, we're back with the Drive-In series. And yes, it's the Halloween Drive-In we do once a year around October. This time we're kicking off a little bit earlier. We're starting in September because there's just so many we want to do. Because we have a fantastic theme for this Halloween Drive-In. Horror films that you don't always think of as horror films. So this is going to be fun. We're going to talk about the nature of horror and some movies that maybe you don't expect us to talk about. I can't wait to jump into this. You're going to have down below, there will be a playlist link so you can see all the Halloween Drive-In series for this year. I am Joshua Noel. This is Will Rose. We're about to jump into this, but first I want to let you know about the rest of the Drive-In series. Since this is the intro, we got to let you know. Today, we're talking about Joaquin Phoenix, The Joker. Next week, we're going to Sharknado. And then the next 4 after that were all voted on our Facebook group. So you guys chose. And if you didn't choose, go join the Facebook group so you can choose next time. We have Jurassic Park, Jaws, The Labyrinth, and then wrapping it up with Alien, the original. So we're going to have a really fun drive-in this year. But first thing first, Will, we just went to the drive-in. We just watched The Joker. And you turn to me and say what?
Man, Joaquin Phoenix, that guy can act. And I went in skeptical, but came out super impressed. And can an entire movie make you feel uncomfortable for 2 hours straight? Yep, this one did. It sure did.
This is where I think I'm going to surprise Will and make everybody mad at me. I after the film, I'm waking up, yawning, and I'm looking at Will going, man, let's watch Brother Bear. That's my first.
Yep, that tracks. That tracks for Joshua's pattern on how he views different things. Sure. I would say right back at you. That tracks. That tracks. Yep. That's you, Joshua. I know you, and that's exactly what I expect from you.
Well, it's funny because it's not like objectively. I'm like, yeah, that was good. He acted well. I see why people like this. I find it really boring. It's not for me. I like that people like it. I'm ready for other people. Actually, I do have a complaint I'm going to talk about later with it. That's a real complaint, not just I got bored. But
I'm kind of with you. Like I definitely went in. That's why I say I went in skeptical. I don't know about this. How can you have a Batman-less Joker and you focus on him? I know all the conversation around like trying to sympathize with the villain and or whatever, but I went in not wanting to like it, not wanting to love it. And then about halfway through, I'm like, I really like this. I really love this. I don't know why. I hate that it's making me feel this uncomfortable. And I hate that I actually like this movie and I can't take my eyes off of it. And I watched it all the way to the end going, yeah, I think I really love this movie.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes some really good points. His acting was on point. Although, for those who didn't catch the reference, Joaquin Phoenix is also the bear in Brother Bear. Yeah, he plays that role, so that's why I know two movies with him in it, and one of them is a cartoon, and the other one is this.
Oh my!
I'm sure if I thought real hard, I could think of other ones he did that I know of. I'm just, you know, I'm bad at actors and names.
He did play Johnny Cash. He played Johnny Cash as well.
I haven't seen that yet, but I should because I love Johnny Cash.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, well, so sorry, I hate to be that guy. Ironically, I'm the one who picked this movie, but I picked it for 2 other people to do.
Right.
As the producer, I was like, hey, wait a minute. People always like our episodes when we're getting ready for a new movie. So I was like, we should do, when we're doing the drive-in, we should do the original Joker, getting ready for the one that's about to come out that I can't pronounce. That's the sequel. I was like, it'll be a really good idea. It'll catch on. And then one of the hosts drops out, and I'm like, should we just cancel it? And Will's like, no, we shouldn't cancel it. I'm like, you know what? I think it can be fun to have someone on who just has a weird opinion about the movie. We'll just do it.
Yeah, unhinged psychotic clowns should be the way you kick off a Halloween horror drive-in series, and this, psychological thriller, as the IMDb calls it. They don't call it horror. It's a psychological thriller or drama. And but as I'm watching this through I've seen it before, and I do want to see the sequel coming up because I can't wait to see what Lady Gaga does with her version of of Harley Quinn. But I rewatched this movie and it's just like, dang, yeah, this can be seen the lens as a horror movie. Who's not scared of psychotic, unhinged clowns that could at any moment either laugh at you and let you go or stab you in the face? Those and that happened in the movie. So yeah, let's go out there and say that this is not for kids. I think I was skeptical going into it because I'm like, I see him as a superhero villain and Batman and he's part of the DC universe. And how can you do this whole film around the Joker? But, Heath Ledger is the one who popularized really the movie Joker, and then or like the silver screen Joker, and Joker got super popular, all the shirts, all the comics, all the stuff. It was Joker, Joker, Joker everywhere. And then they were like, let's do a standalone Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix playing this guy. And I was like, man, I don't know about this. But when I saw it, I was like, man, yep. And now I can't wait for the second one.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to movies or TV shows, I think I'd put Heath Ledger as like the fourth best Joker.
Oof.
Because you gotta have Mark Hamill, because that Joker's the best.
Yeah.
And then I love Jack Nicklaus. Or Jack Nicholson. I don't know how to say his name for some reason. Yeah. I loved his.
Not the golfer. Not the golfer, folks. Not the golfer.
Even though I didn't really care for this film, I really liked the portrayal of the Joker still. I'm like, how he acted was great. So yeah, I think that puts Heath at 4 for me now.
Yeah. Well, oh boy.
Anyway, what is this movie, Will? Unpack for people who haven't seen it. What is it about? Just like a quick synopsis.
Well, I think, just in terms of fandom, Joker, the Joker villain who had made his first appearance in Batman #1 back in 1940 in the standalone Batman comic book, and then has been portrayed in, of course, cartoons and the TV series and all kinds of movies. He's Batman's #1 rogues gallery villain. And, the difference between Batman and the Joker is that what they do with their tragedy. Both have experienced tragedy, both have experienced trauma. And then what makes a hero villain? What you do with that to protect others and make sure others don't go through that, or you just want to exude chaos on the world and hope that everyone experiences what you experience. And this particular movie, there's all kinds of different origins about where Joker come from, or who he is. Was he part of a mafia? Was he a part of a villain, or like a crime syndicate, or was he just a washed up comedian who experienced trauma in his life and then became a villain? I mean, it kind of wraps all that. This movie focuses in on Arthur Fleck, who is a struggling street clown with a sign to try to get people to buy stuff, and he wants to be a comedian. He has a condition, a kind of a mental disability where you laugh or cry at inappropriate times. You can't control your laughter. It's a word that I can't necessarily pronounce. Pseudobladar? I don't know. Anyway, I'm bad with that. But it's a real condition that people have. And so you see in this guy who's wrestling with a real disability, who's taking care of his ailing mom, who he literally gets beat up and jumped at the beginning of the movie. And you feel sorry for this guy who's just trying to make it. And as the movie goes on, he starts to take that trauma, starts to take how people are picking on him or bullying him into a different direction, and he grows in confidence, and then he becomes the one who exudes pain other people and sticking up for himself and sticking up for the little person. This movie also commentates on the rich, and Thomas Wayne is not necessarily the upstanding city role model, but he's really kind of a billionaire who's trodden on the little person. And so at the beginning of the movie, which is this clown who gets beat up, he becomes the clown that beats up other people and exudes a riot where you have all these followers who are putting on clown makeup and clown masks to follow, who are inspired by him to overthrow and to eat the rich. And so I've heard when this movie came out way back when, I remember Mark Bernardin on Kevin Smith's podcast talked about how it made him uneasy because it almost kind of justifies, those who are bullied to turn to become the bully and take out their aggression on other people because of what they've experienced. It almost justifies the villain or the murder or the chaos or whatever. And so there's a larger question here about, compassion for those who are bullied, but then also the person who becomes unhinged with a gun and shoots up a place because they were bullied. Let's not make them a hero or a martyr. Let's really tackle mental health and how we handle one another. So it really kind of goes into that. I'm not watch the movie if you can handle it. Again, it's not for kids. It's not for the weak of heart. There's some really disturbing things in here, but it also, your heart goes out to this guy because of what he's experienced in his life. And should I feel that way about the Joker or a psychotic clown that kills people? I don't know. It toys with those emotions.
Yeah. Well, and I think that part of what makes it so uncomfortable is that it is, especially for those of us who live in America, it's really close to home. Where you're like, these are the same conversations we have about real shootings almost every week at this point. It's just kind of this. Yeah, sometimes it's because of some kind of mental whatever. And the thing that bugs me in real life is usually we try to find a cause and we go, okay, that's why it happened, and then move on. And I'm like, well, to me, I think the thing that irritates me is in real life, we want to find a reason why they're the bad guy, call them the bad guy, lock them up, put them down, whatever we want to do, and then move on. I'm like, well, I feel like this is actually, movies like this and conversations like this is actually indicative of the fact that we need to be helping, that the people causing the harm are sometimes also the victim. And it would be great if we could help people before they became, the Joker.
Yeah, and he starts off, with struggling to make ends meet by being, someone who dresses up a clown who holds up a sign because there's a sale at a furniture store or whatever. He's a part of this little group who's being hired to really make ends meet. And he does have a counselor. He is going to them. He is journaling. He is doing those things. He is medicated. He has, this weird laugh that makes people uncomfortable because he can't control it. It's a part of him. So even on a bus ride with a kid looking at him, he's playing peekaboo. And then the mom kind of turns around and is like, leave my kid alone. And then he starts laughing with that Joker psychotic laugh, but he's not doing it to be mean or to cause harm. He can't help it. He even has a card in his pocket that he hands to someone. I have a condition that I can't control. Be patient with me. And people still aren't patient with him. Don't give him the benefit of the doubt. Don't help him. And then you come to find out that his mom was a part of Arkham Asylum, and is Thomas Wayne his dad or not? Was he adopted or not? There's all these conflicting stories of him dealing with his identity. And eventually he comes to a point where he grows in confidence. You know what? That he's seeing out in the world people kind of looking up to him and wanting to exude chaos. The horror part of this movie isn't just a clown to me. The horror part of this isn't just a serial killer clown out there, but it's how easy society could unravel. And by the get to the end of the movie, you have a riot and chaos and lawlessness and burning cars and the clown gang of people, mob taking over the city. How quick society can unravel. And we just experienced that with COVID, with the pandemic, that, there's underlying things that happen in society that you kind of, well, we'll get to that later. But if the right mix happens, it's a powder keg, it'll explode. And then all of a sudden society has unraveled and there is no law and order per se. And some of the people who riot have justified means to stand up for themselves. But then you're like, wait, I don't condone violence. I don't condone harming other people, regardless whether you're rich or poor. So all those things go into this movie and push those questions. And, I talked about a Batman-less Joker, spoiler. I'll wait. If you want to go watch the movie, pause. You can come back to this. Kid Bruce does show up in this. And by the time you get to the end of the movie, you do see the classic origin story of Batman or Bruce Wayne's parents being murdered in an alley, and then him standing there by himself looking at his dead parents while the riot is happening around town caused by the Joker and those who look up to him. And so it's a different take on the origin story, maybe the timeline a little bit, but how they display that is pretty interesting. And this next movie with Harley Quinn, I don't know how much of a time jump it is, but in terms of if Bruce shows up, the Wayne show back up, I don't know. I'm curious what this next stage is going to be and how they could team up in society. But yeah, there's elements of horror because there's gore, because there's uncomfortable scenes, there's murder, there's blood, but really how quickly society can unravel is a scary thing.
Yeah, and I think to get at what you're talking about, I still just like the thing that I'm just still irritated. So I just want to talk about being irritated. So I want to make one last comment and then move on.
Yeah,
I think what we do in politics, which I think really does matter and is important, especially to God's people, especially since law was basically created by Hebrew Old Testament as well as some Sanskrit stuff, all that stuff. So it's always been a part of our faith, has been deeply connected to our politics and law, not for Americans, but throughout all time.
Speaking from someone who's in law school right now.
Well, that's what I've been studying lately, because I'm able to do an independent study. And I'm like, oh, this is fun. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is where law comes from. This is interesting. If you want to hear more, go to Let Nothing Move You. I will be on a bunch of Leviticus episodes soon, and we're going to talk about the nature of law. Especially because that's legal wisdom and not law. Okay, anyway. Where was I? Okay, I think what really makes me mad is how people get lost while our politics and our churches fight. Also, I'm in a church unity podcast, so of course this is what irritates me, right? But you have people who, should we be affirming, or can people be born gay? Can they not be born gay? And you have all these pastors and theologians arguing. And in the meantime, people who are on the ground, who are actually in the queer community, are experiencing real pain, not able to get hurt because people who should be helping them are too busy arguing about who's right. And that's why I'm like, that just makes me mad. And that's not just that issue. There's all kinds of other issues with, should we help the needy? Should we even do evangelism? Or is everyone predestined? And everybody's arguing instead of just doing the work. And sometimes, as much as I like the arguments, I feel like people get lost while people are arguing. And the same thing happens in our politics. We're busy arguing about, should we have no guns? Should we have red flag laws? What should we be doing about the gun situation? And we've argued for decades now. And in the meantime, people are getting shot. And I'm like, I wish that, yes, let's continue having the conversations, but let's also actually do something. Let's start at the lowest thing of what can we agree on and do something, and then continue to have the conversations while we're doing things, instead of putting everything on pause until we all agree, because we're not going to.
Yeah, I think in the movie itself, you have Arthur dressed up or on a subway, and three rich stockbroker guys, they're bullying a woman on the subway, and then they turn it on him, and so he kills them with a gun that someone gave him to protect himself or borrow a gun, and it's almost by accident or reaction. He's just defending himself. So you're like, oh, he's almost justified in this, defending himself against these guys who are kicking the crap out of him or almost kill him. But it's that was a breaking point for him, that he could defend himself with this gun. And then he saw in society this growing tension between the rich, those who are in the stock market or Thomas Wayne, and those who are poor or feel like they're being trampled upon. And as people are like, oh, the killer clown on the subway, which, he's not a killer clown on the subway, he was defending himself. But as they start growing and wearing clown masks, he's seeing that. I was like, oh, I'm being noticed. Before, I wasn't noticed. No one cared about me. I just want attention. I just want to be noticed. I want to be somebody. I want to be somebody that matters. And it wasn't the people around him, like his family or his boss or his counselor, that paid him much attention. It was the people who are inspired by this subway killing. And then he looks at them. He's like, oh, they notice me. They see that I'm making a difference. And that's what spirals and snowballs for him to be inspired to become this agent of chaos and a leader of this mob. And this movie goes on. There's the music plays a role. The songs play a role. It's just beautifully shot and done. And the music makes you sit on the edge of your seat because you don't know what's going to happen next. But also there's the song, That's Life, that's playing. You're like, oh, yeah, that's life. He's living a hard life, and what the have and the have-nots. And yeah, it's not justified to exude chaos or a riot or to shoot people up. But they cause questions about like how we're taking care of those who are the least of these in our midst, which I think is an important question. Yeah.
And I think we both agree that as a country, we've dropped the ball on people having access to guns too easily and mental health care and all of these things. And that's where part of what makes this movie scary is that it could happen. Like, it's nothing that happened in this film. I'm like, oh, that's outside the realm of possibility. I'm like, all this seems possible. And I think that's part of what makes it so scary. And you've used a few times the term horror, and the theme of this drive-in is horror films that we don't always think of as horror films. So I wanted to ask you, Why do you think people don't always think of movies like this as a horror film?
Well, I think Joker gets lumped in with Batman and superheroes. There's no, like you said, there's no supernatural, mystical, magical fantasy element of this movie. It is real life, real people, and that's what they tried to make the Nolan Batman movies like. There's no like until you get to Batman versus Superman, which is a whole different thing. The Nolan universe is a practical hero who's just a millionaire who has the means and resources to fight criminals, and so this is the same kind of universe where that happens. So I think you think the Joker, you think Batman, you think the Batman TV series or Mark Hamill or a cartoon, and it's just a laughy joke that is one of Batman's villains. But as you see this, he does become like whether it's Halloween or Friday the 13th or a Saw movie or whatever. You see an unhinged person killing people, a lot of blood, stabbings, shootings, and broad daylight murder, and riots, and you're like, man, this is scary. And as any other kind of thriller horror can fall right into that. But Joker gets lumped in with, is it Super Friends? Is it Laffy Mark Hamill on the animated series, or is it more serious than that?
Yeah. Whenever Christian gets in on this drive-in, he might be able to explain what horror is a little bit better, because he's explained it well before, and it made me go, oh, I get it now. But the idea is that the subject matter is horrifying. So I think, yes, this is definitely a psychological thriller where we're following Joker and we're like, okay, yeah, but as people who aren't going through that, the idea of someone going through a psychotic break, riots going on, and people getting shot is a horrifying idea. So I definitely think it does count as horror, but I can see where the emphasis is put on that psychological thriller, and that's what people focus on. And then, of course, like you said, comic book movie, it kind of gets lumped in on that, unfortunately, too.
And during Halloween, a lot of people are going to dress up as a clown from It, or the Joker, or whatever. There's lots of scary clown outfits for Halloween, and if you were walking the streets and you saw someone dressed up that, I'm not poor clowns who are like legit clowns in the circus who are just trying to make people laugh. Has at this time of society, they associate more Stephen King and Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix's Joker than they do, a circus clown. Yeah.
Which would be fun. The last note to get on would be some of our history with Joker and my last grievance. But, I do want to just I think it's interesting. Everyone thinks of that as horror, and it's scary clown. And I think it makes more sense because of the supernatural element. I think it makes it easier for us to relate, to be like, oh, okay, this is horror. I mean, the clown in It is Pennywise is literally fear embodied. So it's kind of like, pretty easy to see that as horror. But at the same time, I think this is scarier to me because I am not worried about fear itself embodying and showing up at my doorstep, because that's a ridiculous idea. Like, I could get into the movie and enjoy it, but I'm like, that's not something I'm worried about. Someone having a psychotic break and shooting up a place that I happen to be at, that is something I genuinely do worry about sometimes. So to me, it's actually scarier.
Yep, I agree 100%. And Joker's one of those characters that, it depends on who's writing them and what they were trying to do. Do they want more laughy, lighthearted Joker, or, if he most of the time now has been written in the last 20 years, especially since The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger, is that when the Joker walks into the room, you're like, or shows up on a panel of the comic, you're like, oh crap, it could get ugly really fast. And he could make a offhand joke or murder the whole room. And it's a pretty scary villain, or like at least the way he's been written. Back in the TV show with back in the 60s, the Batman TV show, it was more a laughy, jokey person, almost similar to like the Riddler, but he's definitely become more serious and more lethal as the decades have moved on.
Yeah. One of my favorite graphic novels I have, I don't remember who wrote it or what the novel is, and I apologize to everybody, but there's a scene where people are going into this party and the Joker's there, and someone flinches when they see him, and Joker's like, you don't need to be scared. It wouldn't be funny to kill you. And
right.
I was just like, that's great.
Yeah, and even that comment so twisted, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? The unhinged not know what's going to happen. The chaos unleashed. So is the Joker a mad genius, similar to Batman, or is he just a serial killer, or or is he a nihilistic agent of chaos? And so I kind of like to see him. My Joker, I like to see a nihilistic agent of chaos that you're just like, oh, because Batman's trying to create order and save people, and the Joker is just the opposite, the exact opposite of Batman, almost just as smart, but the opposite. So
Mark Hamill's Joker, that's the one I like.
Yeah,
that's my Joker. Mm-hmm. But all that said, this was the last thing I wanted to say. One of my favorite Batman-esque comics has, and I'm trying to remember, is this the joke that kills, where Joker says his backstory is multiple choice? So you have multiple different stories of the Joker, like, which one's true? And he's like, who knows? And to me, that's always in the comic version, that's always been part of like what makes him scary, what draws me to the character, is that he's a mystery. So that's part of why I think it's hard for me to love this movie, just because I'm like, I like not knowing where the Joker's from. Like, that's part of what makes him scary, is the mystery. But how do you feel about that? Because this isn't technically part of the DCU, so they're able to still have a Joker with a mystery and then also have this story. But what do you think?
I mean, like with most superheroes, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, their backstory, their origin story. There's nuance. Some people who create or unpack certain things, or maybe deconstruct, reconstruct some things, but you're not going to do a Superman, Batman story with a different origin story. Joker is mystery, and it depends on who writes it. So yeah, this one's in a different universe. They have a definitive back story, but this is a version out there that's in the comics of one possible origin story of the Joker. They've leaned into one possible. So yeah, it's like an Elseworlds what if story that I see on screen. It's not the definitive. It's just one movie version of what could be an origin story for the Joker. Not once and for all, this is how it is, and from here on out, this is a version of someone's interpretation of what it could be. Heath Ledger, there's a reason in that movie, The Dark Knight, that he shares a few different conflicting stories of his background. You're like, what is it? Is he lying? Are they all? It can't all be true. And so this is one of the versions that they've lifted up on some comic book story arcs of what his origin could be, and they just leaned harder into it. But yeah, this could be one. It maybe not be the definitive one, or just a certain version in the Joker's mind as he sits there rocking back and forth in Arkham Asylum. In his mind, he's playing this out in the movie. This movie is just in his mind of how he portrays himself at this particular day or moment. So that's how I kind of see it.
Yeah. And like I said, and we've talked about, this movie has a lot of good things to say. I appreciate that, even if I fell asleep both times I tried to watch it. But I appreciate what it's trying to say. For me personally, I like a villain that I don't have to feel sympathy towards. I like that Joker is a mystery and scary, and I don't think every bad guy. I like some bad guys with sympathy stories. I liked how they did Thanos like that. I don't feel like every villain needs it. But that's just me.
Right. I agree.
All right. So with that, we have one question we're asking every single drive-in this year for the Halloween series. Will, if you were to go to a Halloween party dressed as a character from this film, what would your costume be?
Fantastic question. I am the guy who doesn't, even though I go to a lot of Comic-Cons, and I probably could dress up as Lex Luthor or Charles Xavier at a Comic-Con because I have the same haircut as them. I don't do a lot of cosplay. I'm the guy who wears like just the Star Wars t-shirt at Comic-Con, or even on Halloween, wear a Star Wars t-shirt and go to a Halloween party, not really dressed up. I don't mind dressing, but like it's just a lot of work, cosplay and costume. So if I think about this movie, I think if I was going to dress up to someone in this movie, I would be someone in just civilian clothes, trying to run for safety at the end of the movie while the riot's going on. I'm just a dude in jeans and a t-shirt and sneakers running away from everybody.
Oh man, that's funny. I think obviously Joker's the obvious answer. I'm going to jump to the second film. I'm going to convince Will to be the Joker, and I'm going to cross dress and be Harley Quinn because I think it would just be funny for me and Will to go somewhere as the Joker and Harley.
Yeah, and we could invent a dance that we dance down some stairs, get a long.
It'll be bad,
and we'll trip down the stairs, trip up the stairs as we're trying to dance down in a choreographed dance routine. Yeah,
it'll be perfect.
We'll try to recreate that at North Carolina Comic-Con this year in November. There's a big flight of stairs up the Carolina Theater, and we'll create a dance up and down the steps.
But you know what? It might be a good episode of our other podcast that's going to be on the network, Some Joyful Noises, to talk about the next movie since it's a musical. So
yeah, music was a big part of this one. It'll be a big part of the next one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we will be having a music podcast soon, so check that out. Launch date's October 5th and 8th. I might put a link there if I can find a link. I don't know. You guys just look for it. Rate and review this show on Podchaser, though, or if you're on a laptop. If you're on your phone or you're listening on Spotify, hit the little 3 dots on the podcast page. It'll go to rate and review where you can leave a rating there. Apple Podcasts, you scroll down to the bottom and you can rate and review there as well. All of those help us and help other people find the show, so we appreciate that. Again, in the description below, we'll have a playlist of all of our Halloween drive-ins, something like that. And of course, we need you all to do one very important thing for us, and to remember, we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priest.